How's it going, Laser Bruces? Up, Bobby Sixkilla. Welcome back to Shinrai, Broken Beyond Despair. Now, when we left the last episode, we were interviewing, or let's say interrogating all the people just to see what was happening when the blackout happened. And we learned a lot that would incriminate Runa specifically. It makes it look really bad for her, so we are now talking to her about Hero. So let's continue. We've got a whole lot of people still to talk to. Could take the whole episode to get through the talking, but we'll see. So Rai told us something rather interesting. She said that she originally didn't want to invite Hiro and Momoka, and only did so because you insisted on it. Is that true? Yes, that would be correct. Could you please tell us why you insisted on inviting them? Why would I not? It would have been incredibly rude not to invite them. They're our classmates after all. Besides, if we'd not invited Mori-san, Aiga-san would not have come either. What kind of party would that have been? As you might recall, Ginmaku-san is throwing her own Halloween party tonight, and many of our classmates have already decided to attend hers. So from the beginning, we were not that many. Right, no wonder Rai was so furious about Kenji and his friends attending Masaki's party instead. Indeed. Now imagine if Mori-san, Aiga-san and Shirataki-san hadn't come either. Although in retrospect you could say it might have been better that way. Maybe. In any event, I only wanted this party to become a success, and I couldn't accept how Miyamoto-san had decided not to invite some of our friends due to rather absurd reasons. Like you having feelings for Hiro. Excuse me? Rai told us about it. She said that your reason why she didn't want to invite them. I cannot believe Miyamoto-san would tell you that. So it is true then. Well, I might have had feelings for Shirataki-san, but that's all in the past now. I keep telling Miyamoto-san that, but she simply refuses to believe me. So the two of them coming here didn't bother you? Of course not. Is that so? You didn't hate Momoka then? What kind of a question is that? Hate her for what? Shirataki-san simply chose her over me, that's all there is to it. Of course I didn't hate Mori-san for it. On the contrary, I even wanted to become friends with her. That is also the reason why I agreed to this partner cosplay. Oh right, I'd almost forgotten about that. Well, that actually makes it worse. We do the partner cosplay, and then I know you're wearing the rope that I can kill you with. So she would have known that she had the weapon on her to kill her with as well. So that's even worse, even though it's been there in front of me the whole time. Whose idea was that again? The costumes? That would have been Mori-san's idea. Why? Just curious. Oh, Runa. In any event, I don't know what exactly Miyamoto-san told you, but there seems to be a big misunderstanding. I did not possess any feelings for Shirataki-san, I do not hate Mori-san, and I certainly did not mind them being here. Besides, I fail to see how any of this is of any importance here, so I would appreciate if you'd refrain from asking any further questions regarding my privacy. Right. Sorry, Runa. I didn't mean to be intrusive. Wow, that glare! By her standards, Runa seemed pretty pissed, but I guess Taiko had gone a little far with his rather direct questions. Thanks to them, however, this had turned into a rather interesting conversation. It was hard to say whether Runa still had feelings for Hiro or not, but one thing was for sure. It was quite a sensitive topic to her. Oh my god, Runa's a killer! Probably. Okay, Mika. You were the first one to disappear after Rai sent Raiko-chan and Nobara-chan to the breaker room. Please tell us why you ran off like that, and what exactly you were doing after you left. Isn't it obvious? Mika followed Raiko and Nobara to the basement. It was a blackout. Mika couldn't waste such an opportunity. An opportunity? For what? Scaring Raiko to death, of course. So you wanted to use the darkness to your advantage then? Aku. Did you notice you were being followed, Raiko-chan? No. In retrospect, I should have figured as much, but my mind was occupied with other things. I see. So you followed them downstairs without being detected. And then? It took a while for Mika to arrive because it was so dark, and Mika didn't feel like face planting. But when Mika got to the breaker room, she peeked through the door and observed Raiko and Nobara, all stealthy-like, waiting for the right moment to strike. But if you wanted to use the darkness to your advantage, then why'd you wait until we already switched the lights back on before you tried scaring us? Because that was the right moment to strike. Mika had to attack when Raiko was least expecting it. And who would expect a stealthy Mika hiding outside the door in broad ceiling light? Are you telling me you'd basically been waiting in front of the break room the whole time? Aku. And when they finally left, you tried scaring Raiko-chan and Nobara-chan, correct? Aku. And then the three of you heard Carmen and Runa's screams, and you quickly ran to the second floor. Aku. And afterwards, you escorted Rena to the first floor restrooms and then returned with her to the dining hall, yes? Aku. I see. Well, I guess that's all we need to know. Thanks. Aku. Well, as expected, we didn't really learn much from her. Only that she'd been the first to leave the dining hall. And that she'd apparently followed us, spending basically the entire first blackout in front of the breaker room observing us. Was that really the truth? It was hard to tell how much time we had needed exactly, but I was sure it had taken a while to turn the power back on. There would have definitely been more than enough time for her to make a quick stop somewhere else. Yeah, I don't think so. So, you guys doing the questioning together, huh? I guess that means I'm next. Where's Taiko-kun, huh? I told him I wanted to talk to you alone. Huh? Why? Ain't you gonna question me together? There's no need to question you at all. I already told him everything I know, and since you were there with me the whole time, there wouldn't be anything new for you to add. Oh, I see. I just want to check up on you, so... How are you? Feeling okay? Well, what do you think? I'm scared as fuck. We're stuck here in the middle of nowhere and can't call our parents. If that wasn't already bad enough, there's this weird shit going on. Doors that should be open are locked, doors that should be locked are open, it's dark, it's cold, it's creepy. Koto-kun's just went missing, and there's this whole thing about Momo. She's dead. Dead. You know what that means? We ain't gonna see her ever again. She's gone. Just gone. Baro-chan. Her entire body was visibly trembling and she clenched her fist and lowered her head. She tried hiding her face, but despite her falling hair blocking the view, I could still see her tears, dropping to the floor right in front of her feet. Just how'd things turn out this way? Her voice was almost drowned in sadness. Nevertheless, she forced herself to continue. To think we'd just been talking to her like normal just a short while ago, and now we'll never be able to talk to her ever again. Just why did this have to happen? And it ain't just that. I'm scared. I'm scared of what's gonna happen next. What all this means. I just can't. Her voice caved in completely. Baro-chan threw herself at me with such a force that I almost fell backwards. I managed to keep my balance, however, slung my arms around her and pressed her tightly against me as possible. Now I could not only see her body trembling, but also feel it. Feel it trembling from the fear and sadness that had been building up inside this whole time. My poor Baro-chan. I could well imagine how heavily all of this must have been weighing on her. The fact that someone had purposefully isolated us from the outside world, all the strange mysteries we'd encountered so far, Momoko's death. We'd gotten wrapped up in something truly scary. She had every reason to cry, every reason to be afraid. Even I, as I was holding her like this, noticed my vision starting to get slightly blurry. It wasn't because I was scared though, nor was it because of Momoko. Of course I was also sad about her death, but even though this probably sounded rather cold, I wasn't sad enough to shed a single tear for her. I hadn't been close enough to care that much. But I was that close to Baro-chan, so seeing her in such distress was unbearable for me. I'd always prayed never again to see her like this. Next to losing someone I loved, I couldn't imagine anything worse. I couldn't even really explain why, but whenever I saw her cry, I just wanted to cry too. However, I had to pull myself together and stay focused. Focused on figuring out what was going here, as well as how to get out of this mess. For Baro-chan's sake more than anyone else's. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump at you like that. It's just... I know. And it's okay. If it makes you feel better, you can throw yourself at me as many times as you want. Whenever you want. That's what friends are for, right? I'm so glad you came here with me. I wouldn't know what to do without you. Still? I just wish I hadn't accepted Rai's invitation in the first place. I should have listened to you. I should have just stayed home. It's pointless to lament your decision now. Besides, no one could have known things would go down like this. But rest assured, I'm here, and I'll stay at your side no matter what happens. That's what I came here for, right? Yes. There's no reason to be afraid. Just leave everything to me. I'll figure out what's going on here. And I'll find a way to turn the power back on. I promise. Thanks. I know I can count on you. A smile. For an instant I saw a smile flash across her lips, and it gave me even more motivation to fulfill the promise I'd just given her. That's it. I think we've heard all the really important stuff now, so I guess we should stop the questioning. Unless you have anything left you'd like to ask the others. Alright. New notebook entries have been added. EX page for Katoba's profile has been added. EX page for Runa's profile. Nice. So that concluded the questioning. While the others sat down at the dinner tables again, Taiko and I moved on to the other sliding doors once more, where we could talk in private. Together we went through everything we'd learned just now, making sure neither of us had missed any important details before finally evaluating the newly gathered information. We certainly had learned quite a few interesting things. Unfortunately, even though we now had a much better understanding of what had occurred during the first blackout, there were still many pieces missing in order to fully complete the puzzle, especially in regards to the biggest question of all, namely, what had happened to Momoka. It was hard to say anything with certainty at this point, but at least one thing was for sure. While suicide still couldn't be ruled out, the possibility of murder had increased by a huge degree, thanks to what we'd heard from Runa. Yes. In fact, it looked as though my theory could have very well worked. In a case of murder, there's really only one way I could see it might have played out. And not only did the theory explain how someone could have killed Momoka, it solved the riddle on how she could have known the second floor guest room being unlocked. The idea had been sparked by Bara-chan's talking about possession. She proposed that a ghost had possessed Momoka, and that had led her to the second floor guest room. But what if that is exactly what happened? We just have to see this ghost, this phantom, as the murderer whose identity was still unknown. So what if someone had told Momoko about the unlocked guest room? What if the someone had somehow caused her to head there during the blackout? And what if they'd followed her and committed the crime? Considering what Runa had told us, it could have worked. There were only 4 people who came into question as possible suspects. Everyone who had left the dining hall after Bara-chan and me during the first blackout. Runa, Carmen, Hiro, Mika, Hiro. Yeah. Yes, only those 4 would have been able to do it. It was hard to believe someone like Mika was capable of murder, and there was no visible motive for her to commit such a deed. And she definitely had the opportunity to carry it out. After all, we only had her word that she followed us directly to the basement and waited in front of the breaker room the whole time. What if she'd run to the second floor instead and waited there for Momoka to... Once the deed was done, she'd make it look like Momoka had hanged herself, and then use the darkness to sneak past Runa and the others before going to the basement, in order to startle us. I guess it all depended on the question of whether or not the time Bara-chan and I needed to turn the power back on would have sufficed to accomplish that. But she didn't know the layout of the place. She doesn't, doesn't make sense. As for the other 3, they left the dining hall together to chase after Momoka. Gordon and Runa, however, they hadn't stuck together the whole time. Apparently Hiro and Carmen had run ahead to the 3rd floor, which resulted in Runa searching the second one all by herself. What if Hiro and Carmen had split up on reaching the 2nd floor? What if one of them stayed there while the other had continued upstairs? Before Runa had managed to catch up, the one remaining on the 2nd floor had headed to the guest room, with Momoka waiting inside. Runa had told us that she'd moved the entire 2nd floor hallway in search of Momoka, calling her name. That would have made it rather easy to determine her position. Once she'd passed the room, whoever had been inside had just committed the crime, could have then snuck out and rushed down the stairs. And then, when the lights were back on and Runa had turned around, it looked as though they'd just returned from the 3rd floor. Or Runa could simply have lied to us. While Hiro and Carmen actually had searched the 3rd floor, she could have entered the guest room herself, killed Momoka, and just left in time to pretend to find the corpse alongside the others. Anyway, all 4 of them would have certainly had the opportunity to kill Momoka. So was it really possible? Could one of them have been a murderer? Well, you know my theory. Runa is painted in such a bad light now that there's no one else. As soon as Taika and I were done evaluating the information we gathered, we once again joined the others at the dinner table closest to the entrance. When I took my place next to Bara-chan, she immediately grabbed my arm to cuddle it, leaned against my shoulder and released an exhausted yawn. By now it was well past midnight, so it was only natural for her to feel tired. Especially after the recent events. All that running around, the constant surprises and chaos, seemed to have taken quite a toll on her, just like everyone else. I felt beat myself and I would have loved to retreat to a warm, comfortable bed, but I wouldn't have been able to sleep right now anyway. Not after what had happened here. And I guess the same applied to the others as well. When I look around, all I can see were gloomy, miserable faces. No matter how often we reminded ourselves of the cold facts, it was still hard to accept them. To think that one of our classmates died under mysterious circumstances, and that we were now trapped in the middle of the mountains with no means of calling for help. It truly was a nightmare. And as long as this nightmare continued, none of us could afford to rest, regardless of how tired and exhausted we were. So now that you've heard everything we have to say, any new ideas? Well, to be honest, a lot of questions still remain. It's hard to tell how everything happened here tonight might be related. So you're telling me you don't even have the slightest clue as to what's going on? I have some theories, but it's still just wild speculation for the most part. Well, just wildly speculate then. I can understand if you don't want to say anything false, but we have to start somewhere. If we all put our heads together, I'm sure we can figure it out. At the very least, I can tell you that we won't be getting anywhere if you keep your thoughts to yourself. I can very well understand why Taika was hesitant about sharing his thoughts. If he just told everyone about our murder theory, things were bound to get even more out of hand. And why take the risk when there still wasn't definite proof on it? Then again, Rai was quite right as well. We couldn't sit here forever just thinking. Of course, we could have just waited for the power to miraculously go back on, or for our parents to get worried enough to come and get us, but... Come on, say something. Okay, fine. What about you, Raiko-chan? I bet you figured something out, right? I didn't know what to say either. I looked at Taiko, but he just shook his head, so I remained silent. Are you guys for real? Was you going around questioning all of us just a big waste of time? It's the work of a ghost after all, ain't it? That's the only way everything can be explained. Momoko really got possessed, didn't she? Nonsense, Akadori-san. Mori-san clearly committed suicide. Ah, here we go. And the reason you said that is because you're the killer, lady. I'm not going to let this go. I hope you know that. I don't even understand what all this is about. Granted, there might... See, she's deflecting now. Jesus, way to make it even worse for yourself. There might be things that do not understand of as of yet, but I'm certain they can be properly explained. Once the police carry out an investigation, they'll be able to piece everything together. So I do not see why we should even attempt to do their job. What's more important right now is to find a way to contact the police, as well as our families. This is what we should be focusing on, not mystery solving. We're just teenagers after all, not detectives. Aku. Mika agrees with Runa. Thinking is overrated. We need to take action. Yeah, but what action? Thinking is all we can do right now, considering there's no frickin' way we can get to the breaker room. And we need to find a way. It can't be called the breaker room for nothing. Let's just go in and break it open, Aku. Taika already tried that and failed. It's a solid metal door after all. If all of us work together, we can easily destroy it. I think you're underestimating the sturdiness of 4-inch thick metal, as well as overestimating the durability of our bones. Well, Tamashi-san has right to some extent. There has to be a way for us to get into the breaker room. If all we can do right now is think, we might as well try to think about how to achieve that. While the others continued their discussion as to what we were supposed to do next, Taiko and I exchanged silent glances. There was certainly some truth to what Runa had said. The most important thing right now was to find a way to get into the breaker room somehow. In order to call for help, we need to turn the power back on. So maybe it really was a better idea to simply focus on that. Then again, now that the possibility of murder had arisen, I simply couldn't blend it out. I had to know what had happened here, and not just quench my own curiosity. If Momoko had really been murdered, then maybe the rest of us were in danger too. Anywho, first things first, Hiro and Carmen still aren't back yet. So it's about time we check up on them again. I'm feeling uneasy about leaving them up there alone for so long. Besides, I'd still like to hear their version of what happened during the blackout, and compare them to Runa's. Ooh, she's angry again. And why would you need to do that? Compare my version of it to those of Shirataki-san and Aika-san? What? Oh, well, to be quite honest with you, Kakai-san, I believe I know the reason why you refused to share your thoughts with us. Huh? You think that Mori-san was murdered, correct? Wait, what? Is that true? It cannot have been a curse, and to think it was an accident is equally silly. However, for a while now, you seem rather dissatisfied with the idea of Mori-san committing suicide. So that only really leaves one other possibility, does it not? Wait. There must be a misunderstanding here. You can't honestly believe Momoko was murdered. Right, Taiko? Like Runa said, it's at least a possibility. Everyone was left utterly speechless at those words. For a few moments, Rai, Bara-chan and Mika stared at Taiko in disbelief, waiting for him to say something. Anything. However, their wish that he would deny being serious about such a ludicrous claim wasn't granted. Instead, the grim expression on his face only reinforced how serious he was. Now that the cat was out of the bag, there was no more reason to try and hide anything. How could he even say something like that? Let alone think it? You know what that means, don't you? The murderer. The murderer would have to be one of us. I'm fully aware of that. That's why I didn't want to bring it up. You gotta be kidding. Tell me you are. I mean, you can't be serious. Do you really think one of us killed her? It wasn't Mika. It definitely wasn't Mika. There ain't no way any of us could be a murderer. Especially not Mika. Hey, calm down. Nothing's set in stone yet. Like I said, it's only a possibility. I can't believe what I'm hearing. That you would even consider it a possibility. Consider that one of us would. That's insane. Totally insane. You've lost your mind. How could you believe one of us could be a murderer? Don't you trust us? Don't you trust your friends? Hey now, I never said that. Of course I don't want to think any of us is a murderer. Believe me, I don't like the idea either. But there are a couple of things pointing at it. Like what? Do you even need to ask? You know as well as I do that there are a few things that make a suicide seem rather odd, to say the least. But would murder really make more sense? Wouldn't they create a whole lot of problems as well? Like how would the murderer have even done it? That's why I said it's only a possibility, just as much as suicide still is. Is it really just a possibility? Or are you already convinced it was one of us? Taiko didn't respond. Judging from Runa's look, she was well aware of the fact that she was one of the suspects. I guess Taiko's rather straightforward way of questioning her hadn't really helped in keeping his suspicion hidden. You think I did it? Isn't that so, Kakai-san? That's why you want to compare my version of what happened during the blackout to those of Shirataki-san and Aika-san. To see if I was lying. Wait, what? You can't honestly believe that Runa, of all people, would be a murderer. If this is murder, and that's a big if, the culprit could only have been one of those left in the dining hall after Raiko-chan and Nobara-chan left during the first blackout. In other words, the only possible suspects would be Mika, Hiro, Carmen, and Runa. No way. There's no way Runa would ever do something like that. Or any of the others for that matter. They wouldn't even have a reason to. But I do. Or at the least, that's what you're thinking, Kakai-san, are you not? You honestly made that quite clear when asking me about Shirataki-san and Mori-san. But you don't think... That's bullshit. Runa doesn't care for Hiro anymore. You're the one who told me otherwise. Well, I was mistaken then. And even if I wasn't, so what? Runa would never kill anyone for such a petty reason. Or for any reason at all. Anyways, why are we still talking about this? Momoko obviously committed suicide. I'm 100% sure of that now. Raiko-chan, tell the idiot he's wrong. There's no way in hell this is murder, right? Everyone was suddenly staring at me, expecting an answer. What was I supposed to say? Of course I'd rather believe it to be a suicide myself, however, I couldn't avert my eyes from the facts. Just like Taiko had said, there were a few things pointing towards murder. I had to think this through once again. I could understand why Rai didn't like the idea of her best friend being a suspect. I mean, I'd probably have reacted much the same if Bara-chan had been suspected. But it was true that, in the case of murder, it could only have been Carmen, Hiro, Runa, or Mika. Everyone else had watertight alibi for the duration of the first blackout, so only one of those four would have the opportunity to kill Momoko. Maybe I was looking at this from the wrong angle. Instead of asking who had the opportunity to do it, maybe I should have asked who fulfilled the requirements to do it. If we were to assume this to be murder, there are a few things the culprit must have been able to do, and know about in advance to pull it off. The blackout, the room being open, the costume she was wearing, etc. So what were the reasons again? And why was I considering the possibility of murder? The fact that she was... If she said something to Momoko about Hiro and her relationship because she was kind of sensitive about it, she could easily set her off, etc. First of all, there was Momoko's weird behaviour, running straight to the second floor and into the only unlocked guest room. Not only would Momoko have needed to know about that room being unlocked in the case of suicide, the same applied to the culprit in the case of a murder. Moreover, if my theory was correct, they had somehow caused her to head there during the blackout. They must have also known about the power outage occurring in the first place. It was Hiro's horror story. It couldn't be mere coincidence we'd heard a story about a ghost driving an overly jealous girlfriend to commit suicide by hanging themselves, and soon after, we discovered Momoko who had hanged herself. The culprit must have used the story as an inspiration for their crime, although I guess it must not be necessarily been planned in advance. After killing Momoko in the guest room, and seeing the rope tied around her waist, it could have been a spontaneous idea. In any event, with that, we already had 4 requirements for our culprit. They were the one who left the dining hall during the first blackout. They must have known in advance about the power outage occurring tonight. They must have known about the second floor guest room being unlocked, or even had gotten a chance to unlock it themselves. They must have been present when Hiro had told us his horror story. But that wasn't all. There was actually one more requirement. One of the biggest reasons why he'd even started considering the possibility of murder. The phone in the reception and second power outage. No one would go as far as to cut the cord of a phone for a mere prank. So what other reason could anyone have done it then? Only to prevent us from calling an ambulance, and the police of course. And for a murderer? It made a lot of sense to do such a thing, didn't it? Maybe they needed some more time to get themselves a proper alibi, or to get rid of incriminating evidence, and... Curses, why was I only realizing this now? Of course, taking all the above into account, especially that last part. There was one single person above us, among us, who was more suspicious than anyone else. Runa's the one who's most suspicious. Runa was definitely one of the most suspicious among us, and she basically fulfilled all the requirements, but she was behind the cut phone code. Why'd she spend almost the entire time since Momoka's discovery here in the dining hall with us? What was the point in preventing us from using the phone then? Maybe there was one I currently couldn't see, but for now I had to focus on what I could see. And I could see how someone else might have made use of our inability to call for help. Someone quite a tad more suspicious than Runa. Well, it had to be what's-his-face for being missing, Kotoba, right? No way he could have anything to do with Momoka's death. Well, I didn't think he did, but after all, he'd been inside the dining hall with Ryan Taika the whole time, so he basically I'm running out of options. Hero. He was the one who'd come up with that horror story, so that alone made him quite suspicious, and judging by the argument that resulted from it, his relationship with Momoka must have been rather strained, which could be seen as a possible motive. Moreover, he'd been the one barking orders around after Momoka's discovery, sending Baro-chan and me away, and entering the guest room to take care of Momoka himself. Carmen might have entered with him, but he later kicked her out to be alone for a while. But what if he'd done so for a very different reason? No, before jumping to conclusions, I had to take this one step at a time. First of all, did he even fulfill all the other requirements? If so, there must have been a way for him to somehow know about Rai's plans and the occurrence of the first blackout in advance. Questioning results. Let's go with questioning results. There's a lot there, of course. Rai told us that Carmen had been involved with the party preparations. Considering how close she and Momoka had been, it's possible she might have told her about it. And in much the same manner, Momoka could have told Hiro. So there's a possibility for him to have known about tonight's events in advance certainly existed. What about the second floor guest room, however? If he was the culprit, he should have known about it being unlocked, or even got a chance to unlock it himself. Was there a way for him to have accomplished that somehow? Yeah, well, he went away to go to the toilet. And she gave him the keys. Remember? Resort keys. When Hiro wanted to unlock the restrooms to the first floor. Yeah, that one. Right. Hiro had borrowed the keys from Rai to unlock the first floor restrooms. But who was to say that that was the only thing he unlocked? I guess he could have cut the phone cord around that time as well. Or during the blackout. After all, Runa had said that Hiro had checked the reception while she and Carmen searched the restrooms for Momoka. Either way, if he was the murderer, he might have needed to cut that cord in order to buy himself some time to get rid of incriminating evidence. Of course, this is all just speculation based on the information we've gathered so far. I still lacked any decisive evidence that could actually prove that Hiro had murdered Momoka. He just appeared to be the most likely suspect right now. However, if I was actually right with any of this, then leaving him with Carmen alone up there had been a very big mistake. Yeah. Surprised by the sudden noise of sliding doors getting open, I raised my head. I'd been so deep in thought that I completely blocked out everything around me. When I looked over to the entrance area, I could see Runa standing there holding a candle in her hand, ready to leave. Where you going, Runa? I'll be heading for the restrooms. I'm not feeling so well and I cannot listen to this nonsense any longer. I think I need a moment to myself. So if you'll excuse me. Runa, wait. I still think it's her. I'm gonna go after her. Oh no you won't. We can't let you go by yourself. We can't let her go by herself. I'll be going after her. You'd only make things worse. But don't piss me off even more, Taiko. I'll go calm her down and bring her back. You guys wait here. Taiko opened his mouth again to object, but Rai's deadly glare was enough to make him shallow his words and stay quiet. I was actually hesitant about saying anything to her myself now, let alone mention any of my recent thoughts about Hiro. However, someone had to get to the second floor ASAP, so when Rai spun around in order to leave, I quickly shot up to my feet. Wait, let me come along, please. Huh? Raika-chan? Someone needs to check up on Hiro and Carmen, so... Well, I guess that's true, but... If Raika-chan's going, I'm coming too. Baro-chan clung to my arm again. It didn't look like she was willing to let go anytime soon. I was kind of surprised that she actually wanted to go back up there, to where we'd found Momoka. But I guess she really felt more comfortable as long as she was with me. Hey now, hold on a sec. We shouldn't all leave now. But I want to stay with her. Rai didn't seem happy about all this. For a moment she looked as though she was going to say something to stop us, but in the end she didn't. She must have realized that she couldn't bring up any excuse like it's too dangerous. At least not without indirectly admitting that there might be some truth to Taiko's words. After all, danger would only truly exist if one of us was indeed a murderer. Alright, I guess I can't stop you. You two will stay here though. I doubt Runa wants to see you right now. And to be honest, I don't want to either. So yeah, please keep an eye on that guy for me, Mika. Okay, leave it to Mika. No Taikos will be leaving unharmed. A moment of silence passed as Ryan and Taika quickly exchanged glances. He seemed very dissatisfied with her decision, but there was nothing he could do about it. She made herself quite clear, and although her expression had softened a little, she seemed a bit apologetic. He knew that any further objections would only result in more arguing. So without saying another word, he sat down at the dinner table again next to Mika. It was rather sad to see how everything had turned out. It certainly wasn't how Ryan had envisioned her party to be. Or any of us, for that matter. Unfortunately, my suspicions turned out to be accurate. It was only going to get worse from here on out. Oh yeah. Very much so. Alright, we're going to wrap this one up here because we're out of time for today. But in the next one... Shit, I don't know. We'll go up and find that Hero has killed Carmen as well. I care less about that one though, because Carmen's kind of a dick. But never mind. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.